The ocean holds stories older than kingdoms, older than cities, older than our entire species. For thousands of years, sailors returned from long voyages with trembling hands, claiming they'd seen things no human should ever witness. Serpents longer than their ships, shadows the size of mountains drifting under the waves, mouths filled with teeth shaped like nightmares. People called these stories myths, legends, overreactions from frightened men. But what if some weren't? What if the monsters they described weren't imaginary, but memories? Today, we're diving into 10 mythical sea creatures that shockingly were real. Some ruled the oceans millions of years before humans walked the earth. Some still lurk in the deep today. And some may be far closer than we think. This isn't fantasy. This is where ancient fear meets modern science, where legends suddenly feel a little too possible, and where the line between myth and reality disappears beneath the waves. Welcome to the world of real sea monsters. Let's begin. First on our list is the mighty Leviathan Melvillei. For centuries, ancient texts described a creature called the Leviathan, a sea dragon capable of swallowing ships whole. A beast of chaos, fire, and destruction. Most people assumed it was nothing more than a religious metaphor. But here's the twist. A real animal once existed that matches the myth eerily well. Leviathan Melvillei was a prehistoric whale with teeth the size of your hand. Not smooth whale teeth, jagged, serrated knives built for ripping flesh. It hunted other whales. Its bite force exceeded that of any predator alive today. And at nearly 60 feet long, it rivaled the great predators of its time. Imagine a killer whale but doubled in size, armed like a shark, and fast enough to chase down anything in the water. If ancient humans ever found its skull nearly 10 feet long, of course, they'd imagine a sea dragon. Today, Leviathan shows up in games, movies, and books as an unstoppable force. But the truth is far scarier. This monster wasn't fiction. It ruled the ocean long before we arrived, and its jaws were more terrifying than any myth. Next up is one you've definitely heard of, Megalodon. This creature is so famous that people forget it was actually real. A shark so massive its teeth were the size of a human palm. A predator that grew up to 60 feet long, with jaws wide enough to swallow a person whole or bite a whale in half. To ancient sailors who found its giant fossilized teeth, it must have looked like weapons dropped by gods. But here's where things get interesting. For decades, people believed Megalodon ruled the entire ocean. But scientists now think it preferred warm coastal waters, stalking whales, dolphins, and anything large enough to make the ocean shake. Even today, the idea of Megalodon hasn't died. Strange sonar readings, unexplained bite marks, and unsettling ocean footage still fuel the theory that something massive might still be lurking in the deep. Does Megalodon still exist? Science says no. But the ocean covers 70% of our planet, and we've explored less than 10% of it. So when people say Megalodon could be hiding somewhere in the black, silent trenches, they're not crazy, just curious. Third on our list is a creature that fooled entire civilizations, Basilosaurus. The name means king lizard, so when its fossils were first discovered, people believed it was a giant serpentine monster, basically a real sea dragon. But here's the shock. Basilosaurus wasn't a reptile at all. It was one of the first giant whales to ever exist. Its long, snake-like body stretched nearly 60 feet, making it look like a mythological serpent. Its jaws were filled with razor-sharp teeth, unlike anything modern whales have today. And it hunted with terrifying precision, attacking sharks, fish, and even other whales. To ancient cultures, Basilosaurus bones sticking out of cliffs looked like the skeletons of dragons or sea serpents. And when people in the Middle East found them over 1,000 years ago, they believed they belonged to the monsters described in their legends. It wasn't until modern science stepped in that we realized the truth. The legendary sea serpent wasn't just a story. It lived, it hunted, and it ruled the prehistoric oceans long before we did. Next up is one of the strangest predators ever discovered, Helicoprion. At first glance, it looks like a normal prehistoric shark. But then you see its mouth and everything changes. Inside its jaw was a spiral of teeth, shaped like a buzzsaw. Not rows of teeth like modern sharks, a literal spinning blade of razor-sharp triangles. For a century, Scientists had no idea where this spiral belonged. Some thought it sat on its nose. Others believed it hung under its throat. Only recently did we learn the truth. The buzzsaw sat inside the lower jaw, slicing prey like a biological chainsaw. Imagine swimming in the ancient ocean and seeing a creature approach with a spinning blade where its teeth should be. Of course, ancient people created legends about saw-toothed sea demons. But this one? This one was real. Fifth on our list is the long-necked terror behind lake monster legends, Styxosaurus. If you've ever heard of the Loch Ness Monster, sea serpents, or mysterious long-necked creatures rising from dark lakes, this is where those stories came from. Styxosaurus was a plesiosaur, a marine reptile with a neck up to 18 feet long and a mouth filled with sharp, needle-like teeth. Its body moved silently through the water, and it hunted by striking with lightning speed. When ancient people found its skeletons, the long neck made it look like a serpent with a small head, exactly like the monsters they already feared. Its neck was so flexible that it could twist and turn with incredible speed. And since plesiosaurs existed all over the world, almost every culture living near water created stories about long-necked beasts hiding in the depths. The truth, those stories weren't born from imagination. They were born from fossils of a real animal that once ruled the oceans. Few people talk about this next creature, Dunkleosteus, but it deserves a place among the greatest monsters Earth has ever seen. Dunkleosteus wasn't a shark. It wasn't a reptile. It was something much stranger, a giant armored fish covered in bone plates like a tank. It grew up to 30 feet long and had a bite force of over 8,000 pounds. Instead of teeth, it had sharp bone blades that sliced through anything: sharks, turtles, and even other Dunkleosteus. Its eyes were large, black, and emotionless. Its skull looked like a metal helmet, and its jaw snapped shut faster than almost any predator that has ever lived. If ancient humans ever found fragments of its armor, they would have believed it belonged to a monster forged by gods. In a way, they weren't wrong. Next is one of the oldest sea monsters on the planet, the Eurypterid, also known as the sea scorpion. This creature lived over 400 million years ago, long before dinosaurs even existed. Some species were small, but others grew up to 8 feet long. Imagine a giant armored scorpion swimming toward you with claws big enough to grab your leg. Its tail curved behind it like a weapon. Its eyes were cold and predatory. To early humans who discovered its fossils, the idea of a scorpion the size of a crocodile must have been unthinkable. No wonder ancient cultures told stories about monstrous sea insects and underwater demons. But the sea scorpion was no myth. It lived. It hunted. And it dominated prehistoric rivers and oceans with terrifying power. Number 8 is a creature bigger than any living sea turtle, Archelon. Archelon was massive, over 15 feet long, wingspan wider than a car, a shell as thick as armor, and a beak strong enough to crush bone. When its fossils were discovered, people believed they had found the remains of a giant monster turtle. From ancient legends, creatures said to carry islands on their backs or drag boats into the deep. And honestly, Archelon fits that image perfectly. It glided through ancient seas like a silent giant, hunting jellyfish, squid, and anything small enough to swallow whole. Some ancient myths describe turtles big enough for humans to stand on without realizing they were alive. Those stories almost certainly came from fossils of Archelon, a creature so large, so powerful, and so ancient, it feels mythic even with all the science behind it. Next on our list is the colossal squid, the real monster sailors weren't prepared for. Everyone talks about the giant squid, but the colossal squid is bigger, heavier, and far more terrifying. Its eyes are the largest of any animal on Earth, the size of dinner plates. It has rotating hooks on its tentacles, and it lives in the darkest, coldest parts of the ocean. For centuries, sailors saw massive tentacles floating near the surface and believed they came from demons or sea dragons. When whales washed ashore covered in enormous sucker scars, people thought they were battle wounds from mythological monsters. But the truth was simpler and scarier. A real creature was living in the deep all along. We've only seen a handful alive. We still don't know how big they can truly get. And every year, scientists find scars on whales that suggest something enormous still lurks below. Sometimes legends don't come from imagination. They come from something watching you from the dark. And finally, the deadly hunter known as Xiphactinus. Imagine a fish the size of a car, with a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth, capable of swallowing prey almost as big as itself. Xiphactinus was exactly that. One fossil was found with an entire smaller fish inside its stomach, perfectly preserved, swallowed whole. Scientists believe it attacked with explosive speed, striking its prey like a missile in the water. Ancient cultures near fossil beds told stories of monstrous fish that ate anything, even humans, in a single bite. And when you look at Xiphactinus, those old legends suddenly seem reasonable. It was aggressive, fast, and terrifyingly efficient. A real sea monster hiding in plain history. Myths don't appear out of nowhere. They grow from fear, from shadows, from things we barely understand. But sometimes they grow from truth. Every creature we explored today wasn't just a legend. It was an echo of something that really existed. Some were gentle giants. Some were apex predators. All were unforgettable. And the most chilling part? We've explored less than 10% of the ocean. The rest is darkness, silence, and secrets. So when ancient stories speak of sea serpents, dragons, and monsters waiting beneath the waves, maybe they weren't imagining anything. Maybe they were remembering.